Thank you. Well, at least it certainly is a pleasure to see an honest audience. That's terrible. Ladies and gentlemen out there in the great unseen radio audience, I can only apologize for the unseemly behavior of these klotzes who somehow got into our little tiny group. Just one radio listener who wants me to go on, who loves me for what I am, a sensitive individual. Well, just one, a sensitive, beautiful individual of infinite sensitivity and joy, who has only love for all of mankind. Right, gang? Now, are you booing mankind or love? Which is it? Or is it me you're booing? Oh, I can see this is going to be a difficult night. Will one embattled listener out there in the darkness of Staten Island, out there in this poor little hovel, huddling next to a darkened air conditioner that hasn't worked since last year, please give me a call and say, "Carry on, Shep." Silence. You notice the phones aren't ringing? Well, maybe that's because we are moving into International Love Week, which begins exactly at midnight tonight. And for those of you who are interested in love, incidentally, I've always felt that love is an invention of America. Literally. In fact, I've often felt, too, the way Clifford Odets put it, that if we should, instead of having an eagle for our insignia, we should have a Cocker Spaniel. Sitting up begging, "Please love me," Yeah, this is the way it is in our world today, and we might as well face it for what it is. I will never forget the first time. How many of you guys in this crowd remember, now this is maybe perhaps a male thing. I don't know, though. How many of you remember the first time when you discovered you were being rejected? Rejected. Which is, by the way, that's a word that strikes terror into the hearts of every living man and every chick in the world. Speaking of living men and chicks, have you seen that commercial? Have you noticed that everything is fun today? Have you seen that commercial where the guy's laying in bed and he's got a gigantic bandage on his head and his feet are, with the cables holding it up to the ceiling there, and he's laying there and he's got a giant cast on his chest and he's grinning like he's out of his skull because he's got Allstate insurance. Did you see that one? And his friends say, Charlie looks very cheerful. And you hear the laugh come on. Then there's all kinds of fun commercials. You've seen the fun Alka-Seltzer commercial. Nothing I like better than to have a little fun with a couple of Alka-Seltzers. That's my idea of the new fun world. Well, of course, part of all this is the fact that most of us are vaguely afraid that we are not going to... What is fun? Have you ever asked yourself what fun is? Some people find fun in cracking their knuckles. Oh, yeah. Listen, I have a friend used to sit down in the basement when I'm a kid. Bolis Rakowski. He was shaped sort of like a small bowling ball with feet, And Bolek used to sit there, that was his Polish name. Bolek Rakowski used to sit there and crack his knuckles. And all around him you'd smell nothing but the smell of fermenting cabbage. Sauerkraut. Oh, it was a great face. What's the matter, honey? She's remembering something. He sits down there and he cracks his knuckles. See, he could crack his knuckles. He had an 8-note range, a full octave. And I remember later on when he really started to work, he got an octave and a half, which ain't easy. And he'd sit there and crack his knuckles to the Star-Spangled Banner. And we would all, I love it. And Schwartz would sit there and play his teeth. This is true folk music. You know, you put a number 2 Ticonderoga pencil across the margin, sit there, and he is playing Semper Fidelis. Now, I am a rubber band man, you know, doing, 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 you know. I'm the Harpo Marx of the rubber band, see, playing away there. This is all part of that eternal search that all of us have for that one magic thing. Fun. Fun. Old F-U-N, fun. Which is what all of us are looking for. I remember my old man. He pursued it all of his life. He pursued fun the way Ahab pursued the white whale. And as a matter of fact, fun was his white whale. And so I can remember him on a Sunday morning. You know, I wonder how many families still do this. He'd wake up late, about 10 o'clock in the morning. That's late for him. Every morning he went to work at 7. And so 10 o'clock we had this whole big rule. Everybody's got to shut up around the house. Sunday morning, the old man's asleep. You remember that, you know, there's an itchy feeling that kids get. That terrible itchiness. And, you know, you're walking around, standing on the bed. My kid brother is under the day bed whimpering. He's still there, by the way. Funny, I hear from him once in a while. Every couple of years, the phone rings, and I pick it up, and I hear, it's Randy. He's still out in Hammond, Indiana, you know, covered with a cretonne daybed. Well, things really don't change. They just get bigger, that's all. Or littler. Well, Sunday morning was the fun morning. And so we had the big breakfast on Sunday. Now that meant no cream of wheat, you know. We would have eggs, we would have coffee cake and that whole business. And about 15 minutes after breakfast, the old man would start pacing. He'd get that wild look. Let's do something. And of course, I get that sick feeling. I could feel, here we go, we're going to visit Aunt Glen again. Aunt Glen was a kind of aunt that, I'll tell you the kind of aunt she was. She bought incense burners from Woolworth. You ever seen those incense burners that look like little golden Buddhas, you know? And you put this little thing in there, it looks like a little pill, and you light it, and it smells up the whole house. And she had these little Chinese things that hung from the ceiling, little strips of glass, you know. She was that kind of aunt. She was a doily aunt. And whenever the old man got the itch on a Sunday morning, he says, let's do something. Let's do something. He'd walk back and forth, let's do something. Come on, get dressed, kids. Oh, that sick feeling, I'm trapped. And out in the darkness, I could hear Bruner, Schwartz, and Flick. They're playing ball. We are preparing to visit Aunt Glen. Well, why did we visit Aunt Glen? I want to tell you why we visited Aunt Glen. Uncle Tom, who was her husband, was my bootlegger uncle. He was totally the opposite of what Aunt Glen should have had as a husband, you know. And he has got his basement full of all kinds of stuff, none of which any of us could see. By the way, did you hear that sad news note on the air today? You know, have you ever had the vague feeling that hardly any of us matched the men of yesteryear? You know, you see Gary Cooper in an old movie, and, you know, it's that high noon syndrome, and you hear the time ticking off, tick, tick, tick. And that big train is arriving. And getting off that train are 3 hardened killers. Slob, Clag, and Guts. Big black hats. And they step off and you can see them six shooters banging up against their hips. And there's only one man that stands between this poor little simple western town and total disaster. Old Lank. Gary. He's come riding down out of that far horizon, a lone figure, with the wind blowing and howling across the street of that simple western town. The schoolmarm is hiding in the church, and that big old clock in the steeple says 2 minutes to noon. Old Gary walks out, and he knows what he's got to do. And damn it, he's going to do it. $7,500 a week. And he's got the fastest draw on the Metro lock. He walks out, you know, that loose hip walk. Stands there for a moment, rocks in the wind. And all of us sit out there in the darkness and sing, Great Scott. And we vaguely picture ourselves. When you're watching Gary Cooper or some John Wayne type, do you identify with him? Or do you identify with the little huddled band of cowards that are hiding there in the church? Is that who you identify with? I'm afraid that's the truth. Well, there was a news note that came on the air today that was a great story of the decline and fall of the West. A man was arrested in Miami today. His name, Al Capone Jr. And what was he arrested for? Stealing 2 bottles of aspirin and a transistor radio battery. Al Capone Jr. His old man stole the entire city of Chicago. Can you imagine Al Capone Jr. where, you know, he's in the clink now, and down in the depths of hell in the bowels down there, where the devil and all of his assistants are working him over. This huddled figure, this little jot of the mafia looks up and he says, "What was that?" He stole what? This is 2 bottles of aspirin, Al. 2 bottles of aspirin. He goes back to shovel. And he knows that Western civilization is doomed. You got to think about that one, gang. Are there any Spengler fans in the crowd here? I guess I'm the only one. Decline and fall of the West. Well, you know, speaking of West, have you ever been placed in that position where you really had to do something? Seriously had to do something when there was an event happening before you? You know, that's one of the great moral issues of our time. That's the disenfranchised individual. Do you have responsibility to society? In short, if somebody comes in here and they try to hold up the limelight, they come in with a couple of 6-shooters, what do? Do you shell out? Do you fight them? Do you call the police? Or do you try to get in with them? Hey, fella, I cased this joint myself, you know? Which do you do? This is a great situation. You know, it's a very difficult problem. Well, each one of us in our lives has faced that kind of situation where you have to make a decision, a real decision. And I'll never forget the time I made a decision. You want to hear about it? Holy smokes. Well, I'll tell you, it happened at a dance, like so many traumatic experiences do. Of one kind or another, I'll tell you. I think men are 50,000 times more embarrassed at dances than women, for a lot of reasons, many of which I can't go into on the air. And that's a problem, too. You'll have to explain that one when you get back to Jersey. But I am at this dance, see, and you remember, how many of you remember when they actually had places called dance halls? You know, just a dance hall, you know, and they had a joint outside of the town where I lived, and this joint was called the Dreamland Cafe. It was a dance hall. And there were guys called Mickey Isley's Dreamland 5. You know, outfits like that were playing there, and they had colored lights. Blue lights, green lights, yellow lights, and it was very romantic. They had Japanese lanterns hanging. And you remember between the dances, these guys would come out and throw this stuff on the floor, these sparkle things, you know, so you'd slip better, you know. Oh, yeah, boy, I'll tell you, they'd throw this stuff out, and you were supposed to go between dances and sit down at your table. And you brought setups. Remember your big bottle of Coke or something like that? And they would bring out the whiskey at like $4 a shot. That kind of thing. So you got the picture now. This was a hangout for the Martys of the period. You remember the movie Marty? By the way, every week when we're down here, have you noticed before the show I walk around and look at the tables here? I'm picking out the trouble table. That trouble table usually consists of 4 Martys who have not had a date in 2 years. And they are here at the Limelight with a tall, thin girl with a mustache. She's the den mother, you know. Oh, the Marty world is a very complex social world, see. And so me and Flick and Bruner, one night, there was a certain quality of the illicit about the dreamland. A certain quality of excitement about it. Because you had to dress up to go there. And that always feels vaguely decadent. You know, sinful, rotten, somehow, you know. And so one Friday night, Schwartz and Flick and Bruner were riding around doing, incidentally, do chicks ever do this? I'm going to ask a hypothetical question. Do girls ever ride around in cars, 4 of them, just ride around and look out of the car for guys? They do. We could get in some deep water here tonight, friends. Well, nevertheless, that was a great hobby in northern Indiana, and it was called scragging. I don't know whether they use that expression underneath. They call it scragging, see? And what you would see out there walking around the streets were scrags. There were either good scrags or medium scrags or wowie, you know. And that was called scrag. We would ride around in Flick's car. And Flick's sitting up in the front there, see, he's driving. And that was always a very bad position, you know. You got to watch your grill and stuff. He's driving away there. And Schwartz is off to his right. He was always riding shotgun. See? And I always played it back of Flick right behind here, see. And over here would be Bruner. And we've got the radar going. All shot. And on hot summer nights like this, we'd ride up and down South Chicago and in East Chicago. And the streets are teeming with chicks. And they're walking around, see. There'd be great streams of them. And I'd say, watch it, Flick, watch it. Look at 3 of them. 3 of them coming in at 12 o'clock, watch. Little did we realize we were getting training, you know, for later days. I says, here comes 2 at 4 o'clock. And Schwartz would holler, hey, baby! That was our blockbuster, see? And they would turn around and walk away, see? And then Flick would holler his only obscenity out the window at him, see? And then we'd start looking again. Looking again, see? That's all we ever did, look. We just looked and burned up gallon after gallon after gallon of gas. And then after 2.5 hours of scragging, we would drive in to the drive-in. Now, they don't have drive-ins around here like they have in the Midwest. These are carbuncles on the buttocks of civilization. That's a colorful phrase, isn't it, there, honey? I noticed she was scratching. So here was the drive-in technique, see? The drive-in is laid right in the middle of an ex-cornfield. And they have paved it over asphalt. All over, you see. They put up a gigantic neon sign that stuck maybe 700 feet in the air. And it had a big arrow. And the arrow just said, eat! Eat! You know, these guys out here in the East talk about Jewish mothers saying eat. Listen, we had neon signs that eat, 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 eat. So you'd see the drive-in, see Ted's Miracle Drive-In. Root beer, our specialty, 2-foot hot dogs. And they had a gigantic root beer barrel that was lit up in red and green and yellow neon. And for miles around, people would come at maybe 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, midnight. How do you like the idea of a civilization where the only exciting thing to do is to fill your gut, is to eat? And so after you've done some scragging, this is why I'm telling the story, because right now there's about 25,000 guys listening to this who are out there scragging. Good luck, guys. Hey, fellas, turn up your radio, and I'll let go a blast for all of you. How about all of us hollering, "Hey, baby," all together? All right, turn up your radio. Let's give them a gigantic. Let's lay out a tremendous. Let's hurl an invective, huh? All right, pause now. All you guys out there in your radios, all of you guys that are driving along playing turnpike tag, all you guys that have just spotted a chick in the Mustang ahead, and you are about to pass her and give her that fantastic, great, wonderful, crinkly-eyed Glenn Ford smile that you've been working on. Turn your radio down now for 10 seconds. Okay, pull it. Now listen. All right, all you guys out there, prepare your radios for it. Do you really want to do that? All you laying out there at Jones Beach, pretending you're looking at the stars. You know, you're seafood fans, you're looking at the ocean and all that stuff. All of you guys that are standing up on the top of buildings, all of you be surprised at the number of fantastic social events right now. Great human dramas are being played out on the top of 10-story buildings, in the dark, next to a chicken coop, with a transistor radio playing full blast at this very moment with this show on. Incidentally, it has just come to my mind how we are breaking the mood for a lot of people out there. You know, the mood is very important when you're about to consummate this fantastic, tremendous Fordham Road romance. You know, the magnetic eyes that meet over that hot dog at Rikers 2 or 3 months ago, and now it's slowly built up to this point where you're sitting now and you're hurling your 42 Mercury along the highway out there along Queen. Incidentally, can you ever imagine a better name for a road than Utopia Highway? And it goes through Flushing. Somehow there's a poetic justice to these things, you know. They fit. Well, right now there are a lot of guys that are trying to subtly turn their radio to another station. Let's get some music, Clara. And she says, "Wait a minute, I want everybody saying. Just a minute." I wonder how many people out there right now are cursing that thing that cast them into this mold. That here is this guy driving. He's a Playboy reader. He sees himself at 6.5 feet tall, beautiful, flat stomach. He sees himself as a guy who's going to take his 2 weeks on a Riviera. He makes fantastic salads. And actually, all he is little fat, short Charlie Applewrot. Lifetime subscriber to the center fold-out. The greatest collection of mint playgirls in existence. He's got them all tacked up there in his pad at home, you know. And every month he waits for that magazine to come out. You know, his eyes dilated with excitement. The mailman walks up and says, "Here it is. Miss June, Charlie." Love has come to Charlie again. He's split. Oh, love. He tacks it back up there and he starts pacing again, waiting for the next one. And now here he is. He's out with the real chick, you see. Real chicks never are like the people that mythology has created. Nor are men like the people that mythology has created. There is no man alive, including Anthony Perkins, who is as sensitive as Anthony Perkins. Thank you, man. Nor, might I add, is there anybody alive who remotely approaches Jean Moreau in her magnificent understanding of the male psyche, the Simone Signores of existence, who work only in myth. There's just people named Mabel. There are millions of Howies. There are Clarences. There are people named Jane. And they all feel that vague sense of being cheated. Here is Esther Jane out there in the darkness. And she is riding with Clarence. And she is cursing the day that she was ever born. Why am I stuck with Clarence? All those beautiful chicks in Vogue magazine, they spend all of their time with magnificent people like Andy Warhol. Great thinkers like Tom Wolfe and all that. And here I am stuck with his klutz. And they're driving through the darkness on his leopard skin upholstery that he got at great cost from Montgomery Ward. Took him 2 Saturdays to get it to fit. And he's got the decals on the side of his 53 Mercury, with the tigers and the lions leaping, He's whistling along through the darkness, and inside of him he says, oh, gee, this little pimply slop. And he pauses for a moment, and he says to himself, oh, Audrey Hepburn, where are you? Oh. And they're driving through Secaucus. She's heading back there. Her glasses are still clouded from the air of the Garden State. And they're heading out, and where are they going? They're going to the drive-in. They're going to the drive-in movie. They have this big screen, see? And on the screen, there is a 700-foot Audrey Hepburn. And she is approaching a 290-foot Cary Grant. And all around them in stereophonic sound, Dmitri Tiomkin has created love music that can be heard all the way down to Hunterdon County. And bum, 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 bum. Tiomkin is very, very influenced by Tchaikovsky. I hope you know that. Bum, bum, bum. And Carrie is approaching her like this, and it's beautiful. And the music rises, and it's in Technicolor, and his suit never catches him in the collar, You notice that? Everything fits magnificently, and she approaches him, and she's beautiful, and her eyes are sparkling, and her eyes then close. Bum, 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 bum. And there's Clarence sitting there watching. And there's Esther Jane sitting there watching. And all they can smell are the Chinese egg rolls. And the pizza pies, that are being sold back there, and the kids are running up and down, and dogs are stopping by the rear wheel, And after all, they're only 8 minutes by air from Secaucus. There's other problems, and a vague rain is starting to drift down over their windshield, and the dust and the crud is floating down, and Cary Grant is approaching her like this. Bum, 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 bum. And right on their dashboard are 2 plastic saints blessing them, looking down, and by the way, 1 plastic Casey Stengel. Because, this is living pop art, friends. And so Clarence sits there, and inside of his gut is this little feeling. Oh, why am I cast in this mold? Why didn't I, at the age of 6 months, decide to be an actor? I could have been Cary Grant, and I wouldn't have to work in the Costa County department of that rotten, crummy joint where I work. I wouldn't be stuck with this chick who was born wearing a girdle made out of stainless steel. And she sits there and she stares off in that true romanticism of the female. The violins of her soul playing away. And she says, oh, if I didn't have such a rotten mother, if I didn't have such a klutzy father, if I didn't grow up in a house where my old man wore long john underwear all of his life, I could live a beautiful life, and I could have been skinny and fantastic like Audrey Hepburn, and I could have made the scene with Cary Grant. And all the while, that great drama of the myth is playing itself out. And the rain is coming down, And then suddenly, you know that terrible feeling, we've all known it. When the movie stops, the screen lights up, and there's only maybe 36 of you sitting in that movie house. And you get up and you sort of walk out, real funny. And you back out and there's the street. The sun is shining. You know that terrible, sneaky, rotten feeling of going to the show in the middle of the afternoon on a weekday? Yeah, and you get out there and the sun is still shining and everybody's working. Walking around, and somehow you feel like you've been cut off from that dream world. That world of beauty. Speaking of dream worlds, friends, what radio station is this? Come on, belt it out. And where are we, crowd? Oh, the Big Apple. We're here where it's all happening, right, gang? This is New York. You poor klutches in Ohio. Let me tell you, this is a rotten place to visit, but a fantastic place to live in, right? Oh, they don't have a Robert Moses in Ohio. Build them a great thing. Well, yeah, in other words, this whole dream is going on, you know, and it's all based on myth. It really is a fantastic myth. That once in a great while you find yourself entering a situation like that. And by the way, one of the great moments in a male's life is after he has been talking to this girl. These are the genuine, shall we say, the genuine dramatic tensions that pull us. After you've been talking to this chick, you know, for a couple of weeks in the office or in school, you've been talking to her. Little things are forming in your head. And they're not always the things that we like to think of. Sometimes you think of beautiful lakes, right, gang? Trees, birds, the moon. Have you ever felt like hitting the moon? I think the moon has been responsible for more trouble in this world. I wonder how many guys made a momentous, catastrophic decision in a convertible because of that rotten moon. You're both looking up at that thing, and she says, "Isn't it beautiful, Clarence?" He says, "Yeah." He's confusing that with her, see? And she's confusing that with him. And she says, "You know, that gives me a funny feeling." She has a little myopia, too, you know. And he says, "Me, too." And then, that great moment, his arm goes up behind him and begins to creep over the back of the seat. That is the moment of decision, men. They're going over the horns. That is the moment of truth. And you know that fantastic, awful feeling? You got your hand going up like this, you know? And all of a sudden she goes, whoop. You pull it down. You turn on the key. You say, "Well, I got to get home. I got bowling tomorrow, you know." But, yeah, that's. I wonder how. On the other hand, I've often wondered how women feel sitting in a car, and they feel this guy's arm going back over the seat, and he's trying to pretend he's just being casual. That's the way he always drives, like that. You know? With that cramp, you know, it's going to... You know, I wonder how many guys' pitching arms have been ruined forever by that, you know. Well, I've often wondered, you know, what about chicks, how they feel, feeling this arm going over their shoulder. Is there a decision that says, or is there another voice that says, he's nibbling. Play your cards right. And like a smallmouth bass, he's going to hit that bassarino, and the next thing you know, I'll be reeling him in, you know. I wonder whether or not women have a sense of sporting. Are men like game fish? And is there what they... Yeah. Look carefully over in the darkness. You'll see a guy sitting there with a big spoon sticking out of his mouth. Treble hooks, you know. Well, I want to point out to you, in case you're interested, girls, there are several types of fish, you know. There's the game fish. And there's then what they call the rough fish. Be careful. These are carp, bullheads, the Martys of the fish world. Believe me, the difference between a bullhead and a rainbow trout, oh, there it goes. Fantastic. Let's give him a hand. Oh, we're swinging tonight. You know, one other thing about that business of the moment of truth. You want to hear the moment when I made a decision? Yeah. Well, I'm in the dreamland, see? Flick and Schwartz and Bruner and I have decided to go big time scragging. This costs $2 a head, see? And have you ever heard of the stag line? You know, you always hear about this, but nobody talks about how it feels to be in one. You know, all the short stories that F. Scott Fitzgerald writes about are the guys with the Zelda in their arms. You know, Zelda's here, F. Scott is here, you know, and they've got this thing going. He doesn't talk about that long, silent line of guys hiding behind the potted palms, peering at him, watching with big, hungry eyes. Well, Flick and Schwartz and Bruner and myself are dressed up. We got white shirts on. I am wearing that fantastic white tie that my Aunt Min gave me. The one with the silver snail on it, hand-painted. I got it for graduation. You know, it's outlined in red. It's a beautiful tie. And I'm wearing my electric blue sport coat. You know, the one I saved up once to buy for $18.75 at Bonds. I picked it off the gas pipe racks. You know, have you ever thought, wouldn't you like to see yourself, a picture of yourself, men, when you really thought you were sharp? What an embarrassing picture. It's great. And this coat, by the way, had 6.5-foot shoulders. It had shoulders that went out way like this. I could reach out and touch them, you know, like this. I could turn all the way around in it, see? And it wouldn't move, the whole coat, you know. Turn around, get back in it, put my arms through it like that. And it was made out of some kind of horse blanket material that he said was Irish Shetland worsted. Actually, it was used Brillo. You know, all itchy all over, you know, they had little things hanging down there. And I had a pair of slacks, which were my special slacks, you know, when I'm going on a big time. They were cocoa colored. And they were so tight that when I stood there next to the potted palms, you could hear them drumming. They just go, I'm standing there, and once in a while you'd hear something go ping. You know, just stand. I couldn't move very good. I walked like this. I'd stand there, you know, and it gave you what they call a continental Italian flag. Incidentally, that's the way it's pronounced in Hammond, Indiana. Italian. So you'd stand like this, see, and I'm waiting there with my blue coat, my silver tie. Flick is next to me with his tartan plaid. Red, green, with a tiny fleck of platinum running through it. See, a very tasteful thing. And all four, Schwartz had the first wash and wear suit in our neighborhood. And I'll tell you what happened after he washed it. It had a fascinating accordion pleat. He had horizontal pleats all the way down. Man, have you ever had the kind of... Women don't know these problems of men. Have you ever had the kind of slacks, you buy them, you get them back from the cleaners, and you know they're in that plastic bag and they look so great. You can smell that touch of kerosene about them, you know. And there they are, hanging there. See, it says $1.50 little pink thing on it. It says guaranteed and all that. You take it off and you put them on, and you pull them up like this, and they got that knife edge thing down there. Knife edge like that. And for about 15 milliseconds, they look fantastic. Then all you got to do is go like this, and 18 things appear this way. You got things that go all the way across like that, and you raise one leg like that, and you got a bag hanging down. And you never can figure out how the other guys do it, you know? And how about those shirts, man? You open up this beautiful shirt, you know. Have you ever seen those shirt commercials on the air? Well, let me tell you something. I did a shirt commercial. For those of you who are interested in this gimmick, have you watched those guys on the shirt commercials? You seen that guy that dresses in the morning and that chick says, "Why don't you stay home from work today, Charlie?" Because of his shirt, you know. Boy, there's a lot can be done with a shirt, see? And he's putting his shirt on, and have you noticed that shirt, it's like it's been sprayed on. Phew, fantastic, and it fits. He puts the tie on, and he stands there, and it looks like he's been carved out of alabaster. Well, that's the truth. He has been. That shirt is sprayed on him. Well, let me tell you how they do that. For those of you that are interested, I did a shirt commercial nationwide on television. And it was on the Today Show. Oh, yeah, big time, baby. All those fantastic Alka-Seltzer commercials, that's real big television there, see. And I'm on this show, so they said, "Look, Shep, you're going to have to do this shirt commercial. So you got to get in early." Well, the doggone show rehearses at 4 a.m. They meant you get in at 3 o'clock, you know. That's early on that show. So 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm down there at Rockefeller Center, where the show comes out of the studio. And they are fitting me with this shirt. There are 36 guys working on it. Now, you know how they do this, men? They have a special shirt, see? And you put this thing on, 3 guys lower it down over you. See? It comes down out of the seating with little wires, see? They lower it down. And then there are 9 guys on the floor. They pull it down, see? It's like covering a Zeppelin, you know? They pull it down, and this shirt has been specially made. It has 422 tiny nylon threads, which run down under your feet. See? It's like you got stirrups on, see? And they pull this thing, and it's got little tightening things in it. They tighten it all down, and all of a sudden you can't move. It's like you're in chainmail, see? And it slowly pulls your gut in, until all of a sudden you begin to squirt out of the top of it. Well, I started out, I am 5 feet 10 when I began. When the commercial went on the air, I was just shade under 6'6". I stood there like this, and they light this whole thing, see, and they say, "Stand there now." Well, the show goes on the air in a half an hour, and I stood. I couldn't move, you know. I'd move a little bit, and one foot would go up. See? I stood like this, and all these guys, hold it. Shh, shh, shh. They're spraying you with airplane dope. You know, that tighten, that stretches the skin, and now my gut is in, boing, and my ribs are sticking out, you know. And they held that pose, and John Chancellor is waiting. He says, "Hold it, Shep, hold it. Hold it, Shep. Now, just a minute. We're going on the air in a minute and a half. Hold it." And by now, my blood has stopped. It's completely stopped, and I can hear, you know, have you ever had the feeling when you can hear your pulse? Well, I can hear this go, goom, 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 goom. It's slowing up, you know. Goom, goom. I'm standing like this. And then he says, "Now, wait a minute. Now, this is the director. You would not believe there are at least 6 directors on a commercial like that. There is one director called the smile director. He handles only smiles. And he's a great expert on all types of smile. The seductive smile, the satisfied smile, the smile of the handsome man about to take over the agency smile. And that's the one we've been working on. See, all that. I've got this confident smile. I'm standing there like that. And then suddenly we hit the air. Chancellor says, "Good morning. It's time for Today." He says, "And before we do anything else, it's time now for a quick commercial." Boom, and they cut to me. Coast to coast. coast to coast. My mother is in Hammond, Indiana watching. She can't believe it. All of a sudden, I'm Cary Grant. And she knows I'm not Cary Grant. I'm really just a fire plug with feet, you know. And I come out of the screen there, see, and the voice of the announcer, Hugh Downs, he says, "Yes, men, notice the magnificent fit of this beautiful new double-pointed arrow tapered ruin hock auricular conch in spittle out. It has the special double jabots which pull in the back and up and down the side. You'll note that his smile of total confidence comes from the fact that his shirt really fits." He says, "Yes, pick it up at your favorite dealer now." And now back to John Chancellor. And they cut the Chancellor, and all of a sudden it all gives... It all gave in, and Chancellor says, "Thank you very much, Shep, and now let's take you to Washington, where Chet Huntley is on the stand." These are the behind-the-scenes things which you never see. Well, that's all part of the fantasy world. And so millions of men the next day says, if that can happen to Shepard, the human cantaloupe, that must be a fantastic shirt. So 20 minutes later, there are 8 million guys trying to stick it in, and it keeps going out the other. They stick it in this side, and the back comes out. This is a male problem. Have you ever gone through a really important moment, like with a chick or with a big client, and you get out of the office or you leave her house, and you suddenly discover your shirt's been at half-mast all the time, hanging down to your knees behind? This is a male problem. Women don't even know this. And one of the great moments in a man's life is when he's standing there in his shirt, and he's talking to this girl, and he begins to feel it's getting soggy. The soggy shirt is a real problem. And he feels it crawling up. And as it crawls up, it kind of grabs you in funny, strange places. Right, men? And you stand like this, you sort of tuck like that. And as you tuck, it gets worse. And all of a sudden, you start getting fatter for some reason or other. These are all masculine problems. Well, one of the male problems is that moment of truth that I was talking to you about. To fight or not to fight. Have you ever been with a chick when all of a sudden somebody comes up and says, "Come here, baby, what are you doing with this klutz?" What do you do? Well, you know what Robert Cummings would do. You know what guys like Tab Hunter would do. He'd say, "What'd you say?" Click. You know, there's that little click and the guy falls over backwards. Have you ever tried it? Listen to the nervous laughs in this crowd. Well, Flick and Schwartz and Bruner and I are all standing in a line back at the Potted Palms. And this couple comes dancing past. Now, this guy was an ordinary-looking guy. He's got this chick, and she is saying, "Let me go! Let me go! Stop it! Let me go!" And he says, "Come on, baby, what do you think I brought you here for?" She says, "Let me go! Let me go! Stop it!" And she looks right at me and says, "Help!" Now, what are you applauding here? The moment of truth or fear? She says, "Help! Help me!" And Schwartz says, "Help her. Go ahead. Go ahead, Shep. She's talking to you." I look at this guy in the eye, and he looks me right in the eye, and he says, "What are you going to do about it, Mac?" There you are. That's the moment of truth. What do? You say, "Nothing. Nothing. Go, man. If I were in your place, I'd grab her too. Go." No, you can't. So, about 6 milliseconds of sheer terror go through me. All of a sudden, you know, there's a funny thing that sets in. There's a kind of nuttiness. It must be the basis of kamikaze flying. You say, "Well, what the hell, you know?" Say, "All right, Mac, let go of her." He says, "Okay." He throws her down. He says, "All right, wise guy." And with that, I don't know what made me do. My right lashed out like a pit cobra. unerring, sharp, dynamite exploded 4 inches off to the left of his ear. He fainted neatly, and the next thing I know, I'm in the back seat of Flick's Pontiac. Teeth are coming out of my ear. You don't know that the thing goes all the way through. They come out here, you know. And I'm laying in the back seat, seeing it's all over. I says, what happened, Schwartz, Flick, Bruner, what happened? And they're driving through the night. And all I can hear is Flick hollering, hey, baby! And Schwartz says, hey, there's another one over there. And I'm laying there. It was then that I realized that the difference between fantasy and reality is like 10 million miles. And friends, we have just one. Oh, by the way, those of you out there who think this program goes off the air at 11, and there are a lot of you who do, I'm going to give you a warning that the real stuff starts at 5 minutes after 11. We come on for the last hour, which is not for women and children. That's when the real stuff happens. Let's give the real stuff a hand, fans. We'll be back in just 5 minutes.
At 11:05, and time to go back to Gene Shepard.
Oh, what a sad bunch of orgiasts. All you got to do is tell a crowd to make the sound of an orgy, and they go, whoopee! Oh, man, we're back at the Limelight, and listen, it's summertime. It's nutty time. The heat lays out here on New York City like a fat lady, sitting on a camp bench at a picnic. The heat is just radiating out, laying out there, and don't you feel it in you? Out of context, out of personality, nuttiness, because of the heat. Have you ever one day sat down, you know, and you're sweating and you're and it's dripping down, and all of a sudden, without any warning, you leap up, run right out through a plate glass window, say, I'm going all you are! And then all of a sudden you're out there and you stand, oh, wait, excuse me, friends. Just thinking of something else. Well, I don't think there is a man who is more controlled by rules, by regulations, and by an unspoken set of mores than a guy in the Army. Oh boy, they're really there, you know. And it's a peculiar thing, you know. A lot of guys, when they get out of the Army, vaguely miss that. They miss it. Now, why do they miss it? Well, it's funny. It's hard to explain to women that a guy in the Army's got a lot of things going for him. But one thing, he's got the same suit as everybody else. Nobody can blame him or call him a slob with no taste. Everybody in the Army's a slob with no taste, you know? Yeah, it's the truth. You walk around, you got the same suit as everybody, see? And, you know, some hang a little more, others are cut a little different, you know. Some guys got little different badges up here. Other guys got different patches. But it's all essentially the same thing. And over the Army hangs this great umbrella of how you should be. And you'll learn very quickly in the Army. It's a whole series of things. It's very hard to explain why. But you'll learn quickly on all the little nuances of voice to use. Do you know that there are at least 26,000 cataloged methods, ways of saying yes, sir? And at least 15,000 of them are obscene. Oh, yeah, you say, yes, sir. Or you can say, yes, sir. You know, there's that kind. Or you can say, yes, sir. He gives you a double take. There's that little moment. And it's as complex, believe me, it's as complex as an Oriental 4th century BC dance. The life in the Army. And all these little things, you know, mean different things to guys in the Army. And so you see a PFC, that's just PFC, that's Charlie. You see a guy with 2 stripes? That's Charlie. You notice the slight difference in the name? You see a guy with 3 stripes? That's Sarge. And then there's a guy with 4 stripes, and that's Sergeant. And then there's the guy that's got stripes hanging all the way down the line. And that is that rotten you-know-what. You just say it, see, and all these little subtleties. And there are some things in the Army that go beyond all comprehension. A total crime. Now, what is a total crime in civilian life? I'm not talking about murdering somebody. That's an obvious crime. I'm talking about a crime against the nature of civilian life. You imagine yourself, 5th Avenue, high noon. It's Wednesday. There are 8 million ladies in town for the matinee. And you're walking along 5th Avenue, no pants. Cause a little excitement, doesn't it, there? In front of Saks, you know, you walk along there. You know, you're working for the Jockey Short Company and showing them, you know. Well, there are things in the Army that are even more tightly controlled, and I am in the Army now for 3 years. You got that scene? I'm an old established veteran. I've got, you know, a couple little things, and I got 2 little stripes at that time. Very temporary. I got 2 little stripes, see? And I have been assigned, now this is a very dangerous thing. All of you ex-GIs know this, it's hot. And there's been a couple of things happen. Disastrous things. One thing led to the next. I find myself at a clinic, then in a hospital, and my company ships, where I'm known and I'm loved. My family, you know. You know, it's a funny thing. Your family often merely consists of known dangers. You know, known evils. And so my family ships out. My company's gone. And I hear rumors. See, I'm in the hospital. Somebody says, hey, did you hear about Company K? They're shipped. I said, no. I'm alone. Nothing but the Army around me. 14 million guys. What? Captain Cherry is gone. Hated Captain Cherry. They're gone. And they put me in. Well, you know, it's a funny thing about the Army. I know why people love to hear Army stories. Because they're like real life. They're far more like real life than any fiction about real life is. Because the real things are there. For example, do you know that in the Army, they've got an organization that strikes terror into the hearts of every ex-GI. It's called the Casual Company. Woo. The Casual Company is the Army's equivalent of the Unemployment Service Office. Over there on 42nd Street, you know, where all those guys that are out of work stand in lines, that they feel rotten and rejected. Well, they put me in this company. It's a casual company. No, you don't know anybody. The temperature is 107 degrees. And every day I would get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and stand in line with a bunch of guys I don't know. And a sergeant I didn't know would walk up and down in front of the company. All right, you guys, you're in casual company. That means you are the Army's rejects. You're here for one purpose, and that is to do all the scut details in this whole camp. And I want to tell you, any of you guys thinking of going AWOL, I will bust you personally over my knee. Any questions? And you stood. There were no questions. No questions. And all of us in that company, 200 in that casual company, have been in the Army at least 3 years apiece. Half of us have been overseas. The other half had struggled through all kinds of training camps, had been rejected and hurt and injured. And finally, 3-4 years later, here they are all standing at the culmination of their career. Rejects. In a casual company. And by the way, that's one thing a casual company ain't. Casual. You walk around in a casual company like this. You know, you sit down, You know, and guys, when they're writing letters home, they sit like this. They keep revolving. They write, and they got their trench knife here. It's every man for himself in a casual company, and you've never seen anything like a casual company lining up for detail assignments. There's 200 guys, and you can't see them. 200 men all lined up in the company street, and they have perfected personal camouflage to such a point that there's just a shifting mass, a gray fog. When the sergeant's trying to say, "You six, over there," they're shifting. You know, they're moving back and forth, you know. I've known guys that had a fielding range of 30 feet who didn't move an inch. Moving back and shifting, you know. Oh, that's very true, I'll tell you. And you, in the Army, you perfect the art of standing at attention, and your eyes are focused out there, and no one can get the attention of your eyes. And I've had guys look me right in the face, and they keep bobbing on, standing there. Look at me, look at me. You gotta keep those eyes shifting. These are little things you learn after a while in the Army, you know. Well, I don't know what happened. Now, it's something, you know, all of us have gone through these inexplicable moments, really seriously, in life, where something happens that has absolutely no explanation. Have you ever gotten a job in a company, and all of a sudden, for no reason, everybody hates you? You don't know what you did, you know? You go, what's the matter, fellas? This is nothing. Let's go out to lunch, gang. You say, yeah. I said, no, so you got to stay and watch the shop. You look like that. Well, for some reason, right. See, it is quite obvious that I'm an eminently lovable man. Correct, gang? That's what I thought. All right, George, even my clack is failing tonight. Well, you know, I've always gotten along pretty good. You know, I learned it at the age of when I was about in second grade, that there are two ways to get through life. One way is to have talent. The other way is to be shifty. And be loved. They go hand in hand, see. And I realized that very early in second grade, I had absolutely no head for geography. I could not master the Amazon River tributary system. I never could understand the cheap exports of Brazil. I couldn't remember it. I'd look at it and I would forget it instantly, you know. And 10 minutes later, she says, what's the cheap exports of Brazil? Wrigley's gum. You know, something would come on the line. So I realized I am not smart, you know. Have you noticed that in today's world, there's no such thing as dumb kids? There's just underdeveloped kids. Underexploited, basically great minds. Well, I came out of the age when there were dumb kids. You're just dumb, you know, and you sit back and you're dumb. You know it, you begin to accept it, see? There are smart kids in the class, and then there's a great middle ground, and then there's the dumb kids. And that's me and Doppler and a couple of other guys, Flick and Schwartz, we're the dumb kids, see? And you know, it's great. You have no idea what a fantastic feeling of tremendous achievement it is. To raise your hand, like, real quick, you know, it's been 3.5 months, your arm is stiff, you know, like that, see? And Miss Shields can't believe it. She says, all right, go ahead, you can go, Gene. I said, no, I know the answer. She expects only one thing when you put your hand up, you know. And she says, what? What is the answer? And you say, the chief export of Argentina is cocoa and beef and hides. There's a moment. A pregnant moment. She says, who told you? She suspects Dawn Strickland next to you is feeding you see? It's terrible to sit next to one of the smart kids. You grow up hearing nothing but the swish of a hand over your head. You're sitting there, you know, you got paralysis of the wrist, you know, you never raise. Well, at that age, you know, at second grade, you begin to learn that you can get her to love you by developing little crinkles around the eyes. She comes in the room, you go, you know, and she's up there with the eraser. She says, oh, I'm going to erase this. She says, now, is there anybody out there who would like to show us how to do this multiplication by 7 now, please? Who would like to? And you go, You know, she just melts. This old doll melts. You know, isn't he a cute little boy back there? You know? And there's 8 little guys in the back row. These are all born PFCs. They're not exactly privates, you see, because they've learned this fantastic trick. And they're never going to be an officer, obviously, you see. All they can hope is 1 or 2 little stripes that are thrown to them as a sop, just for being there, you know, seniority. Well, I also developed this other trick. Beautiful trick to learn. I developed it at the knee of Miss Shields, who was a tall, thin, second-grade teacher. And her hair looked like it was Brillo pads, you know? That kind of lady. She had rimless glasses. Miss Shields, she was a great lady. Miss Bernice Shields. And even to this day, you know, every time I hear that name, Miss Bernice Shields, I kind of shiver. And she used to look down, and I developed the technique of the shifting eyeball. Yeah, it's very good for the eye muscles. And both of your eyes go back and forth, see? Try to get my eye here, see? I look right at you, see? It's very difficult, isn't it? See? My eyes just kept moving, and you never move your head, see? It's very good. And there is no rule in the Army that says your eyeballs have to stop. Keep your eyes front. Now, your eyes are pointing front, but your eyeballs can continue to go, see, like this. And the sergeant would walk back and forth in front of 200 guys whose eyeballs are spinning. This is a crowd of trained, hardened, grizzled battle veterans who know where the real battle is, you know. It's on the details, see? It's shifting like that. Well, it was hot. Now, I can't explain this. I'm a technician at this point, you see, already, after 3 years. I'm a technician of getting sergeants to love me. And this is one of the things you learn in the Army. You get sergeants, you work on hoping to get sergeants to love you and officers to pity you. They're 2 separate things, see? And so I worked on this. You know, once in a while when Captain Cherry would come along, there's a way of holding your head, and he feels what hell he's been through. I am a captain. He is but a PFC. I should go easy on him. And he walks on. That doesn't work with first sergeants. Not a bit of it. You've got to work on love. You've got to somehow say, hey, Sarge, gee, I got a funny hobby, Sarge. It embarrasses me. I got this hobby. You know, don't get a chance much to do my hobby in the Army. Got a funny hobby, Sarge. I said, what is your hobby? He's ready, see. I said, well, it's hard to explain, but my hobby is Simonizing cars. And I see your car out there, Sarge, and I don't want to embarrass you or anything, but I just thought I'd like to, you know, go out in a couple hours I got off. I'd like to Simonize your Chevy. Want to keep the wrist in, you know. There's a lot of wrist action works in there, and I don't want you to think I'm sucking around or anything like that. It's my hobby, you know. Well, after I find it works, you see, the sergeant loves you. He loves you. Well, I don't know. See, I'm 3 years in the Army. I've been working this pretty good, you know, all these things, and I've got a way of looking at a guy with stripes that say, you know, there's a way you can get in your eye. It says, I admire a man of achievement. And you look at the stripes. Up and down like that. So some guys got stripes all the way up and down the other side, you know, down the feet and up around. And just look. There's a way of looking with admiration. Seeing this first sergeant's walking around, he's got a pot hanging around, he walks around like this. We had a guy, you know, I see the Frug. And I can remember Sergeant Kowalski, he was doing that years ago. That's the way he walked, you know, he'd walk around. He's got the thing going like this. There's a certain arrogance, too, that develops in sergeants because they can go in the mess hall when everything is dark and the cooks bring out these fantastic steaks for them. All first sergeants are carnivores. Oh, yeah, we used to, I remember one of the moments, you know, walking past, these are the moments in the Army you never see in movies. But it's the PFCs and the corporals are all out after reveille, see, after supper. And they've got nothing to do. They're just walking around. And they're in the middle of nowhere. They're maybe 17 million miles from civilization. And all you can hear is the sound of a truck, a weapons carrier going by. And you hear a couple of radios. You just walk around, and you're dressed up, by the way. You always dress up for a retreat. This is when they bring the flag down. You know, it's funny. Have you ever seen them take the flag down in front of the Sperry Rand building? They got a big flagpole there. The other day I saw 3 guys instinctively walking past Life building. They're bringing a flag. 3 guys went around like this. Old PFCs, you know, instinctively there is attention. See, waiting there. And they're waiting for the chow call. Well, I'm standing around, see, walking around at night. This is a moment you never see in the Army. Everybody's been eating at the mess hall. Now, I don't know whether you know what real Army food is like as opposed to the jokes about Army food. Army food is not the way they say it is. It's worse. It really is. It doesn't taste bad. It just doesn't taste good. No, you can't eat it. That's the trouble with it. You can eat it, and nothing happens. Just eat it. You got your bulge, and that's it. You walk out, you know. Then somebody immediately says, let's go down to PX, get something to eat. You've already put away 9 million calories, but nothing happens. You know, it's totally tasteless. It's a fascinating kind of food, see. And it's completely varied. They'll have, for example, one of the big things in the Army is beets. They're cabbage flavored. Then they have cabbage that's carrot flavored. Then they have carrots that's French toast flavored. And then they'll bring out fish. You know, have you ever had fish in the Army? That's a fantastic experience. One end is a cinder, and the other end's flopping. You know, and you hold it, you know, and it jumps like that. Oh, yeah, I've had chickens clucked right in front of me, and all the while they're crying because one leg's been cooked. So you can't say you don't get good food in the Army. I guess it's a special technique that they have, you know. So after a while, after 3 years in the Army, you know, you don't even think of eating. You just go down there and you sit, you get up, you walk out, you know. And you can't remember instantly after it's over. Nobody remembers what you had. And one new guy in a company will say, oh, wow, wasn't that great? Gee, it was fried liver tonight. Wow. I said, fried liver? What coming in? You've had 7 pieces of fried liver. You don't know it. Well, one of the great moments in the Army is as it's getting dark, just as dusk is falling, that beautiful moment of evensong, and off in the distance you can hear nightingales calling somewhere. You can hear muffled curses in the day room. You know, fist fights beginning down there. It's the evening fight down there. There's always 2 hillbillies that can't write. In every company. Boy, I don't know. You have no idea how many Southerners there are until you get in the Army. Every third guy says, hey, Mac, come on, where you think you're going, Mac? He's an MP, he's got a big white hat, you know, and he clubs you in the back of the head. They get a lot of practice, you know, down there. Well, oh, stop it now. What a rotten mind. Every last company's got 2 or 3 guys that are the drinkers that sit in the day room and endlessly read letters from girls named Amantha Lee. And every 2 weeks, he jumps up, says, I'll be damned if I'm going to stand there, I'm getting out of here. And he goes. You never see him again. Then they bring in another one. His name is always something like Charlie Ledbetter, you know. They replace one with the other, and he comes in, he's got his guitar, he walks, he says, hi, fellas, my name's Ledbetter. Hey, here we go. 2 weeks later, he comes in, bagged to the ears, I ain't gonna keep me in his damn outfit. Out he goes. Charlie is busted out again. Well, one of the great moments in the Army, you see, it's that moment of romance. Twilight. Poets have written about this hour. Shelley, Keats, Wordsworth. And off in the distance you can see the long rolling hills of the Ozarks. And off to the right you can smell the Missouri swamps. And you can hear the birds and the owls. And you can hear the sound of PFC's feet moving back and forth in the company street, trying to decide whether or not to go down to the PX or whether to go to the club. Club. You ever been in a club in the middle of the Ozarks? A service club? Well, you'd understand a lot of the headlines that are going on now if you had. It's a very special kind of place, I'll tell you. I'll never forget one time going into a hamburger stand. Me and Gasser. We're in this little southern town. We have been on maneuvers for about 6 weeks. Do you know what a maneuver is? A maneuver is really a war, only in some ways worse. It really is, you know. You're laying in the mud hour after hour, mosquitoes, and it's hot and it's steamy. And you just feel rotten and crummy, and they keep hollering at you, "All right, all you guys over there on hill number 5, you're dead." They're warming you up, you know. So what do you mean dead? They say, "Well, you just been air raided. 17 pounds of napalm just got you in the back of the neck. Come on down, you're dead." So, okay. One night, we got off, Gasser and I, in the middle of this fantastic maneuver that was being held in the Louisiana swamps. Alligators everywhere. And we get into this tiny town, and we are ravenous, fantastically hungry. We've been living on C rations and K rations, which means, it's hard to explain K rations, Danny. It's difficult, you know. Even in K rations, you want to know about K rations? Even in K rations, there's excitement. You open up that brown box, they all look the same. It's the Cracker Jack box syndrome. You know that excitement of opening a Cracker Jack box and you never know what your prize is? Well, you'd open up the K ration box and you never knew what obscenity you were going to eat tonight. And it came in cans. There was cheese and bacon. And then there was petrified eggs. And then there was ham, goose grease, and shoe leather pemmican. And it came in the cans. And there'd be little excitements when you'd open up the can and you wouldn't know what you're going to get for tonight, see? Well, Gasser and I are in this little town. Now, this is the South. I'll always remember this. This is the town. It's about 1,500 people. I don't want to be unfair to the South, but this is exactly what happened. And we weigh about 43 pounds now. Both Gasser and I, hallowed, you know, our eyes are hollow, staring out of our skulls. Our skin we've been under the sun now for 6 straight weeks, and our skin is red, beet red. We've got heat rash that runs all the way down up here. It comes out of the top of the head, you know. And our uniforms hung on us like, you know, we'd lost about 5 sizes. And here is a diner. We're in town 2.5 minutes. We get out of the bus. We walk along the street, and here's one of those diners, you know, a typical Jersey-type diner. You know, the stainless steel diner front, that whole... Only in America do you find diners. And here's the stainless steel diner. It's like home. And so Gasser says, "How am I getting a hamburger?" I say, "Yeah." And I see these guys all sitting at the counter there. You know that diner bit? Gasser and I walk into this place. We sit down on the stools, and we look up at the menu. Hamburgers, 45 cents. Cheeseburgers, 55 cents. Wheat cakes, 40 cents. Bacon, 48 cents. All that, you know. And so I says, "I think I'll have a cheeseburger. I'm going to go all the way." Oh, I can taste it, you know. I have in my pocket my entire month's salary. $1.76. I'm ready to go, you know. Ready to swing. Well, they take out for laundry, you know. It's $30 a month for laundry. The Army gets it back, I'll tell you. So we're both sitting there, and Gasser says, I think I'll start out with a hamburger, and then maybe I'll have a plate of wheats. And so this guy is walking back and forth there, old Roof, you know. Typical Southern counterman. Big white hat, big broad back. He walks up, he says, "What do you guys want? What do you fellas want, huh?" I said, "Well, cheeseburger." He said, "Okay. What do you want, boss?" So I'll have a hamburger and some Wheats. Okay, one stack of wheats, one cheese, and one regular medium, right? Medium, yeah, okay, one medium. And he turns around and he comes back and he starts writing out the check right away, see? He writes down for my hamburger $1. I said, the hamburger is 45 cents. $1, one hamburger. I said, but it's 45 cents. It says up there on the thing. One hamburger, $1, take it or leave it. You want that hamburger? And both of us got up and walked out into the ambient, soft southern air. It seems that there were two prices. There was one price for people and another price for EM, enlisted men. Well, ever since that time, I had this vague feeling of hunger, always hunger. And one of the great, beautiful moments in the Army is at 9 o'clock at night when it's beginning to get dark and the fireflies are lighting up the horizon. And you can smell somewhere off in the distance the cottonwood trees. And you walk past the mess hall. And there is an aroma that is unmistakable. It's the first sergeant, the exec, the master sergeant, and 2 staff sergeants sitting down to 4-pound T-bone steaks. Oh, it's inspiring. And I can remember Gasser, me, and all the guys from Company K just walking around the mess hall at night sniffing. And this would make a great moment in the Army and incidentally in a movie about the Army. Guys going to smell steaks. So now you got the picture. Oh, by the way, speaking of the hierarchy, and speaking of greasy mess halls, what radio station is this? AM and FM, New York. Well, all right, you got the picture, see? It's hot. It's summertime. Shep is an old vet. He's got his uniform so long now, I'm on my 3rd set of suntans already. All cut down, and I've had, you can see these places where I've had 3 different sets of stripes taken off and put back on, You can see the little holes there, 14 different kinds of patches. You can see the thing up here where the ribbons have been stolen and torn and put back on again, And I'm standing in this company. Now, I cannot explain it. It was the only time it's happened to me ever, really, and certainly the only time in the Army. This first sergeant, whom I had never seen in my life, took a fantastic dislike to me. He hated me. I can't understand why. I don't even see him. I'm moving back. 8 guys in front of me all the time. And he would take roll. And you'd hear him in the morning. See, he says, Watson, Murphy, Schwartz, Shepard. Is that? I can't use the phrase on the radio. You remember what Truman once said? Oh, you remember that great Truman phrase that he applied to a music critic in Washington? 3 simple letters. He says, is that blankety blank blank here? I'd say, yeah. There'd be a pause, and he'd move over to the right a little, he'd look at me. He'd say, yeah? And he would go on. What have I done? What have I done? And every morning it would build up. It built up. It built up day after day after day. And I'm knocking myself out. I'm in the grease trap every day, shoveling the stuff, I plucked more chickens than they had in the whole state of Rhode Island. I cleaned out mess halls. I combed brushes. I remember one morning I spent the entire morning with 2 other GIs on the roof of a latrine, washing it down with little pads, cleaning it. I'm doing everything to get loved. But every morning it's building up. And then came the fatal day. This is what heat will do to you. 3 years in the Army. Remember that. I have a clean slate. I've been busted. I've been re-promoted, I've been like everybody else in the Army. I've been a couple of years overseas and back again. I've kept my nose clean. And my only desire is to stay out of trouble. Just stay out of trouble. That's your chief thing in the Army. Stay out of trouble. Salute anything that moves. Salute almost everything that doesn't move. Holler, yes, sir, every 15 seconds. You keep your nose clean. The old chef's working at that. But every morning in the morning it would come. And you know, the morning is the most vulnerable time for people. You know, they wake up, it's 5 o'clock in the morning, you're naked. You're just that ordinary klutz that you were born for about, I'd say about 10 minutes. And you begin to pull your real you around you, you know. You gird your loins for the day ahead. I can imagine LBJ waking up. It's up and it's 7 o'clock in the morning. He's just waking up, and all of a sudden he's a skinny guy working in a little rotten school in Texas. He wakes up, you know, and for about 10 minutes he has to get it organized. All of a sudden he's there in front of his mirror and he says, I'm president. I'm president. And that's when the day starts. Well, unfortunately in the Army they call roll 5 minutes after you wake up. And so all these naked men are standing there, wearing nothing but raincoats, GI helmets, you know, and the temperature is 140 degrees, and you can smell the French toast that they're fixing for your breakfast down there at the old mess hall. They're frying it in kerosene. Yeah, you smell that, you know, it's all there, part of it. We're all standing there at attention. And he says, Shepherd, you're here, huh? I said, yeah. It's beginning to build. Well, one Saturday, there's only one thing you can hope for when you're in a situation like that. And that's that blessed moment when you're given your pass and you can split out of it. You can go and run, and for 48 hours, you're a people. For 48 hours, you can stand there in a USO, you know, and pretend like you're this great guy, you know, you're a person, and you eat the donuts, and you talk to the chicks, and you have dates, and you walk around under the sky, and you can go any direction you want. You can turn right or left. You can slump. You'd be surprised how great it is to slump, you know. I know a lot of guys that just slump out of principle now, you know. They walk around, you know, because they like to, because all the time you're in the Army, they keep hollering, pull that gut in. Imagine what would happen tomorrow at BBD, you know. If somebody hollered, all you guys in the copy department, pull your guts in. Well, instantly you would revert to form. 18 guys would, you know, snap to like that until they forgot. Well, it's that kind of world. And it is now Friday. I have a date. I have made contact. You know what I mean, man? And I've got this date. And we're going to go down to Atlantic City to the beach. And I can hardly wait. You don't realize what swimming means when you have been on the ashes detail for 5 straight days down at the mess hall. You can't believe it. It's unbelievable. It must be where Ahab came from. You imagine it, you know. You can see yourself with an inner tube, you know, floating around and hollering and eating ice cream cones. And it's Friday night. And I am fixing up tomorrow morning's uniform. I'm going to wear at the inspection. We had 2 uniforms. One was your dirty one. That was the one that you wore when you're out marching. The other is the one you just got back from the cleaners. And you protected it. Man, how many of you can remember the fantastic feeling, which is one of the rare true thrills, pleasures in the Army, of putting on a fresh, crisp pair of suntans? It's a great feeling. They smell like soap and starch. You've just taken a shower. You've shaved. That crisp, that crease that runs down. And you feel great for that 30 seconds till it begins to wilt. You can almost feel it going, ugh, ugh. And you can hear the crack of the starch as it's limping down. But for that few brief moments, you're fantastic. Well, here I am. It's Friday night. See, and I've got my uniform that I'm going to wear tomorrow on the date. I've got my DOP kit out. I'm going through all the stuff that I'm going to take away for the 2 days. You know, I've got my shaving stuff. I've got my swimming trunks, which I bought at the PX. Signal Corps flags, you know. I got my swimming trunks, and I've got my toothbrush. I'm checking everything. And, of course, this is a casual company. No friends. You don't sit there in the barracks and talk about the old days. And I'm fixing everything up thinking about this. The next morning dawns bright and clear. It is Saturday. And exactly at 1 o'clock, I am due to get my pass. To get out of this hell of this company. I'm standing there in attention. And we go out and have this big parade. A great big regimental parade. With the flags flying. Everybody's marching and the band's playing Semper Fidelis. And we're out there and there's a general standing up there looking at you. That's a funny feeling. Have you ever seen these newsreels of all these guys marching, with a gun? You know that thing you see? It's a strange feeling being one of them. Marching with this gun. This general's looking down. Flags flying. And now it's all over. It's 12 noon. I split back to the barracks. I put on my beautiful, clean, new suntans. I go down to the latrine. I'm shaving. Oh, man. When in comes this guy, a guy from my company. He walks up to me and says, "Hey, Shep." I says, "What? What? I'm thinking of this chick. Oh, well, 20 minutes, I'm going to be out of this hellhole. Holy smokes, the hot water is coming, He says, "Hey, Shep." I says, "What?" He says, "What'd you do?" I says, "What do you mean, what'd I do?" "Nothing. I'm here." "I mean, nothing." He says, "They just yanked your pass." Ah! Blood squirts out. I says, "What do you mean, yank my pass?" I was just down to the orderly room, and somebody came in and says, "Yank Shepard's pass." It was a first sergeant, I think. I said, "Yank my pass." And immediately my mind raced. Oh, it's a case of mistaken identity. Must be. My nose is not only clean, I have cleaned 4 million chickens to keep it clean, I've done it all this week. I've marched. I've been flat-chested, flat-stomached, everything, yes or no. I said, I'll play it cool. That first feeling, I'll pretend it doesn't happen. It hasn't happened. So I get all dressed up. I put my hat on, that snotty angle. Pull it down. Got my shiny belt on. Check. I got the little signal corps flags on and everything. Okay. I go down to the orderly room. Now, the orderly room, for those of you who do not know what the orderly room is, it is the main office of a company. There's a little fence inside the orderly room, and sitting right inside the fence is a guy named the CQ, or sometimes he's just a company clerk. And back of him is a big desk that says First Sergeant. And then there's a door behind that desk that says Captain J.L. Watanabe, CO, 1372nd Casual Company, known as the Hellhole. There's that thing. See, that's the way the orderly room works. And the guy that gives you the pass is that corporal sitting just inside the gate. So I come swinging in. So give me my pass. Shepard, 160989446. He said, "Oh, Shepard, yeah. Shepard, yeah, your pass is yanked. I'm sorry, no pass this week." It's true. And there were 10 guys behind me waiting for their pass. And there's that, you can almost feel them breathing, all of a sudden, that feeling of moving away from a leper? When one guy in your company is about to get fired, everybody shuns him. It's catching. Rottenness is catching. Trouble is catching. So immediately all these guys are drifting around. Nobody looks at me. They're saying, "Watson, 1470986. Okay, yeah. I'm standing there. I said, "Wait a minute, Corporal, just a minute." Ooh, the temperature was 900 degrees. It's getting hotter. And I said, "Wait a minute, Corporal, I want my pass." "What do you mean, yank my pass?" "I'm sorry, Mac." And just then, out of the office door comes this little first sergeant. Green sunglasses. He looks like a Luftwaffe second lieutenant. That kind of first sergeant, big green sun. He wore them when he was asleep, He wore them in the rain. He wore them in the dark. He had these big green sunglasses, and he comes popping out of there, and he says, "Yeah, Shepard, your pass is yanked." He just stood there. And the entire orderly room hung like an atom bomb. Nobody wanted to say anything. All just stood there. Guys are sort of walking, their eyes are going around. Your pass is yanked. And I don't know what made me do it. It was the heat. I said, why? You know damn well why. I turned around. I walk out the door, and all of a sudden I says, no, I don't know why. Then it began to bubble. A sun hit me. By now my suntans are wet. And that crawling, creeping animal thing is beginning to come on. I don't know why my pass is yanked. I'm outside on the porch now. I go, and I says, what do you mean, why? Why? He says, oh, you're gonna get smart, huh? And he comes out from behind that little door, the swinging gate, man. He comes out and he says, get out of the way, Mac, get out, your pass is yanked, out. And he pushes me out the door. Well, I get out on the porch, and about 26 guys saw it, see. I'm out on the porch, and he shoves me out. This is the moment when I began to realize that each one of us is a dangerous killer. 3 years in the Army. This is a first sergeant, gang. I turned on my heel. I don't know why. I grabbed that door and opened it up, and he's standing in the screen. See, looking out at me like Ma, like mother. He's got, nothing but hate, malevolent hate. You know why your pass is yanked? Don't give me that jazz. And I reach in and I grab him. I said, did you shove me out of this door? He said, yeah. I said, you did, huh? He says, yeah. We stood face to face. This is a masculine confrontation. And then suddenly he goes, get out of here, get out of the way, and he shoves me. I go stab him down. And instantly I am up. You have no idea what you're capable of, man. Instantly I'm up. I go up those stairs, over the porch, open the door. I grab that guy by the collar, and a second later we are rolling down the stairs, slugging it out. Madness! We're slugging it out, rolling in the dirt, and instantly, of course, the word spread all over the regiment. Shepard is beating the you-know-what out of Kowalski. They can't believe it, boom! And the next thing I know, and he's only about 5'4". He's one of these little angry men. Well, I've got to point out that I am at the peak of my career. It's been 3 years, and I have been through the desert sun and the heat, and I am solid whip steel. He hits me, and I belt him in the mouth. You have no idea how that feels. To really hit a guy in the mouth. I belt him in the mouth. His glasses fly. First time I saw his eyes, He gets up and he takes a wild swing at me like that, and I see that gut. I go up like that. He raises up and goes over flat on his back, and I could hear the cheers. Well, he gets up again, and he's crying. Have you ever seen a first sergeant cry? It scares the hell out of you. He's crying, he's swinging wildly like this, and I belt him on the ear, and down he goes, and all of a sudden, I see the flash of bars. And I realize where I am. There are those silver bars, and there's this guy. He's got this big hat. He's got this great big eagle up there. And he says, get up, both of you! Attention! All right, all you guys back to your barracks. All right, get back to your barracks. Get up, Sergeant. I'm standing there. There is Sergeant Kowalski getting up, his busted glasses. His ears like a cantaloupe. He's crying. And he says, all right, let's go. Oh, God. Have you ever had that feeling? Has anybody in a big blue uniform ever come up and put his hand on your shoulder and says, okay, come on. It's all over. Let's go. Let's go, Lefty. Well, we all have a secret feeling that any minute now we're going to get caught anyway. And so there I am walking behind this first lieutenant. He is the battalion adjutant. This is headquarters. And behind me I can hear the sergeant coming along, and he's mumbling, he's swearing, he's crying. And the sun is hanging down over me. The temperature is 110 degrees. Somewhere, people were swimming. Somewhere, girls were waiting in Atlantic City. Somewhere, donuts were being prepared. And I could see GIs all dressed up and clean. They're kind of walking through that sunny haze on their way to the gate. And all that first sergeant kept saying was, "Follow me. Follow me." 10 minutes later, I am in a cell. Have you ever sat in a cell, friends? I'm in a real cell with bars. They have booked you. They've taken your number and they've taken your dog tags. And I'm sitting in a cell, and all they got here's a little sink. There's a couple of bars in front of me. The temperature is 190 degrees in the cell. And there's a guy walking around out in front, back and forth in front of the cell. And across the hall, I see another cell. And sitting on a three-legged stool is guess who? He's got his sunglasses back on. He ain't giving up. He's got those sunglasses back on. He's got his things all brushed off here, you know. And we both sat like that. And in between us, this guy, walking back and forth. Back and forth. And it hit me, man. The fantastic enormity of hit me. I had belted a first sergeant in the mouth, on the ear, in the gut. I had hit him on top of the head. I had busted his sunglasses. I had torn his stripes. And here I sat, condemned. And all those movies went through my mind. It's funny what you think about. I remember all those movies of Devil's Island. You know, I could see myself 25 years in Leavenworth. I thought, what'll I tell my mom? How am I going to explain this to my mother? And I'm sitting there in this darkness. They have one light bulb hanging there. The sun is shining down. And I suddenly thought of that chick waiting for me in Atlantic City. I had back in my barracks bag for her a 2-pound box of saltwater taffy. And I'm sitting there thinking about it. And the only thing that I could reach, only conclusion, it must have been the heat. It must have been the heat. And right now, at this very minute, out there in the darkness, there are thousands of guys about to do something because of the heat.
The Gene Shepherd Show came to you from WOR Radio in New York, your station for news. For real fun at bargain prices, come on over to Palisades Amusement Park, where your entertainment